Greetings, Substack friends. I hope this voice note finds you well and hopefully relaxed, although let's be real, it's the holiday season. You know, even if you take time off, there's just always so much to do, so many responsibilities, and things come up, emotionally, feelings come up, and it can be a really stressful time. And I know for myself, I find myself just waiting for New Year's to show up, for that New Year's Eve. And then the next morning I wake up on January 1st and I'm like, thank God I got through it. And if you can relate to that, definitely leave a comment and let me know. Because one of the reasons I decided to start this whole Healthy Voice platform is because seasons like this, every holiday season is just so stressful. And it's not even about having a million things to do, although that does play into it. It's more the psychological stuff, the repeated patterns, the repeated thought patterns, the memories from all the bad Christmases I've ever had and all the high expectations to have a good time and the disappointments. And then, of course, with maturity, learning how to let go of those expectations, yet there's still patterning. Even if you make a decision that you're not going to have these high expectations, and you make that decision in the hopes that you will not feel the disappointment, it's like you experience a feeling on repeat over and over again, and it creates a pattern. So no matter what, it comes up, and it's almost like you have to be prepared for it. And this year I was more prepared than the previous years. So this has been an easier season. It's been an easier season to get through. So I wanted to post here, speak to you privately, one-on-one, to let you know that so far I've really been enjoying the experience of creating the Healthy Voice. I launched this platform almost 3 months ago now. I think we're going on 3 months, maybe not even actually, almost. And it's been a wild ride. I did not expect to have so many people interested in this topic. And I've been, I don't know how to put this exactly. I've been surprised, but from a personal perspective, it feels good to have a purpose. It feels good to have something that people can benefit from. On one hand, it's kind of sad to see how popular this platform has become so quickly, because it means that there are so many people who have lost their voices, and that's sad. But at the same time, it's exciting to know that there are so many people who are so proactive in their healing. And I mean that sincerely, because throughout my life, I've always been a proactive healer. I always considered myself to be a bit of a spiritual warrior. And I always despised the feeling of victimhood. I hated the feeling of being pitied, which is really tough when you're dealing with trauma, because depending on who you're talking to, some people will dismiss you, yes, but then other people, they think that the right response is pity. And I actually hate the feeling of being pitied, and which kept me quiet for a long time. And especially kept me quiet on wanting to even just talk about trauma and the healing process and how it affects the voice and how the voice can be used. Because I didn't want people to feel sorry for me, and I didn't want to attract people who feel sorry for themselves. Do you know what I mean? I used to work in social work for a little over 3 years. I worked in the field of domestic violence and sexual assault. And I was on the hotline I was on the domestic violence hotline And so if you happen to call it, and you were in the North Florida region, in the early 2000s, 1999 to, sometime in the early 2000s, then you might have gotten me. You might have talked to me. It's possible. And I worked in the shelter as well. I worked with women who were fresh off of a crime, which is how I prefer to phrase it. I know that the word abuse is the word, but it is a crime, that they had just experienced. And sometimes the police often brought them in on my shift, and I would get them set up. And it was a really intense experience, and I had a lot of rewarding moments. But there were also a lot of moments of frustration, things that I experienced that made me want to get out of social work. I knew I didn't want to do it full time. And part of that was that not everybody is the way I'm going to describe this. There were a lot of people who were very proactive and really determined, but there were a lot of people I encountered who seemed to be stuck in their victimhood. And I found that very frustrating as somebody who has always been proactive and I've had a sort of like a self-loathing around my own feeling of victimhood. And so I really was hesitant to start this platform because I didn't want to attract people who pity themselves or people who are looking for sympathy or people to feel sorry for them. I think there's a difference between feeling compassion for someone who has gone through something and feeling sorry for them. To me, feeling sorry for someone is a condescending approach. It's a power over position. There's a feeling that, you're somehow better than the person you feel sorry for. And so I don't like that dynamic. But I think that compassion is an even exchange. I think everybody goes through stuff. And to feel compassion for a fellow human is essential. It doesn't matter what they've actually gone through. It's just you want to feel compassion for people. And that's the approach I prefer to take. And it's been really nice to see that there are so many people who are on board with that way of healing. And especially in the last, 15 years or so, it seems like the culture has, I understand we needed to have a turning point where we needed to have people who have been victims of violent crime heard in a way that they have not been heard before. But sometimes what I'll call professional victims or people who love their victimhood, sometimes their voices can get a little too loud. And I think that, I think we were at a risk in the culture of becoming like that. And so it's really inspiring to me to have this platform where there are so many people who are proactive, honest about what they've gone through, aware of how it has affected them, aware of how it has debilitated them and held them back. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, of course, there's nothing wrong with recognizing it. It's essential to recognize these things, but it's also necessary to continue moving forward through the healing process. And the healing process is up and down. There are days when you feel like, why am I even doing this? What's the point? You feel like a victim. It happens, but then you get through that day and then you wake up the next day and you're a different person and you start over. And maybe you have a good day where you feel empowered and you can actually look back and think, wow, look at how far I've come. And those are really great days, and they're important to mark. They're important to pay attention to, because there are going to be other days where you feel low and discouraged. And unfortunately, in my experience, that is the path of someone who has experienced especially complex trauma that just was ongoing for so many years. it is a lifelong path as far as I'm concerned. And what I can say is that after being on a healing journey for, I would say it's been about almost 30 years, it does get easier. And it's like anything. It's like any skill. Healing is a skill. And I learned that through taking an approach similar to playing a musical instrument. When you want to learn how to play the piano, you don't master it in 1 week or a few months or even a few years. You have to spend years. Music is a lifelong process. You never stop learning. You never stop practicing. There's always something new to learn. There's always something to improve. And I realized a long time ago that if I was going to get myself to a grounded and steady place where I felt in general fearless and strong using my voice, then I would have to take the long-term musical approach. I would have to look at it like a skill that I practice and I learn about every single day. And that's really what the healing process is. And in my opinion, the people who get stuck in victim mode and who seem to relish pity and sympathy, it's really an easy way out. It's a way to avoid doing the hard work, because it is hard work. It's not fun feeling bad about yourself and recognizing when you feel anxiety and fear. These things feel like flaws, at least in my experience they do. Until they don't, until you just learn to accept them. And it takes work to get to that point. So anyway, I have now spoken for almost 12 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break here. But I hope that some of this resonated with you. And if it did, please start a discussion. Please leave a comment. That's the whole point of this. The whole reason I'm doing this is because I want to reach other people who are on a healing path. Because it's really hard to do this alone. And I did it alone for many, many, many years. And one of the reasons I launched my YouTube channel was to have a way to connect with others who are going through this and who could use my experience. And the reason I launched the community was because I realized that this is so hard to do alone. And like I said, I did it alone for the most part. I had some help with a few healers, a few therapists, and a really good friend. And so I learned that this work requires support. And so my doing these voice notes now and having a Substack is another way to create more community. So please leave a comment or ask a question or share something about your journey, because it helps other people a lot. I've seen how this has helped people in my Healthy Voice community. People who thought they were alone, meaning they thought they were the only ones going through this, and then they joined the community, and I read their comments, and they say things like how much easier it is to do this, knowing that they're not the only ones who have experienced something hard, something that took their confidence away, that took their voice away. Anyway, thank you for listening. And I will see you guys in the next one.